All right, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, so let's go ahead and get started here. I will be starting with Jen's Eric here. Remember, I'll take questions up to an hour beforehand, and I'll start with those. If you posted before that, like Richard, if you're on here, he posted his question yesterday at 4:30 after the last office hours ended. And if you're still on here, Richard, just copy and paste your question up there, and I'll get it answered as we go along here. So Jen's Eric S says, "Hi Q, please explain the trailing elbow's role in the golf swing." So um, yeah, the trailing elbow, it's a fairly important part of the golf swing. Something I think a lot of amateur players do struggle with. But what you're going to see with tour players is you're going to see that elbow at the top of the swing. You're going to see all sorts of places that where that elbow is. You're going to see a flying elbow. You're going to see a tucked elbow, and everything in between. That's completely fine. Some people aren't even capable of getting a full range of motion to the top without having a flying elbow. So if you have a flying elbow, that's completely fine. It is a complete and total myth that you can't have a flying right elbow. And part of it is some people just aren't physically capable of doing it. There's a test that you can do to see if you're kind of physically capable of doing it. Either way, and I can show you the test in the moment, but either way, it doesn't matter if you pass the test or fail the test, but it can give you an idea of, well, I need to stop trying to tuck my elbow at the top of the swing because I'm not physically capable of it doing anyway without hurting my distance a ton. So basically that test is what we call the 90-90 test. So the reason why it's called the 90-90 test is because you're creating an angle of 90 degrees with your upper arm and your side here, and then you're creating an angle of 90 degrees between with your elbow there. So what you do is you go about like this, 90 degrees, and then you try to rotate, try to keep your elbow basically in the same place and try to rotate your arm all the way back. So that would be basically you want this to kind of match the angle of your spine to pass the test. To be able to tuck that elbow in, you need to be able to match that angle to your spine. So you can see I'm probably just barely short of that, and I would have to really push it and maybe dislocate my shoulder in order to make that happen. So physically, I'm not capable of having a completely tucked elbow at the top of the swing. I don't worry about it anyway. But if you're someone that can maybe just go like this, Clay, for instance, he can't go as far back as I can. Yeah, I think he can only go to about right there. So you may notice in his backswing, he's got a flying elbow up there. A lot of great players have had flying elbows. Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. I mean, tons and tons. I mean, you can just go down the line. Those are, a couple of the greatest golfers of all time right there that have flying right elbow. So complete total myth that you cannot have a flying right elbow. What the key is in the downswing. You have to bring that elbow back in to your side. So you can let this thing fly all you want. You can be way out here, but in the downswing, that thing's got to come back in. If you keep it out there, it's going to be very difficult to hit good golf shots. And the reason is because one, you're typically going to come down steep. So if you watch, if I come down and my elbow kind of stays out there, this club, it gets steep in the downswing. It's very vertical here. I'm going to tend to want to stand up and flip to get that club to be back down on plane. I'm going to maybe just come over the top. I may just go like that, and that's extreme, but I think you see what I'm saying there. So the key is you got to bring that elbow back into your side. So if you're looking at your swing and you're seeing your elbow is way out here, or it's kind of if the elbow's kind of staying pointed out and not coming into the side to help you shallow out the club, then what I would work on is maybe working on that elbow motion a little bit. So a great drill that you can do is to go up to the top of the swing here, pause, and wherever your elbow is completely fine. I would just be wherever you're comfortable at. You just want to make sure you get a full range of motion. So what I see a lot of people do is they'll try to keep that elbow tucked in, but because they're not physically capable of having that elbow tucked in and getting a full range of motion, they'll really shorten up their backswing. So they'll only go up to about here. Whereas if they let that elbow fly, they could get way up here. So don't restrict your range of motion because you're trying to keep that elbow in. let it go. So be completely free up here at the top. Be completely disconnected at the top of the swing. That's completely fine. It's actually going to help you to increase your range of motion, speed, and all that good stuff. So the next thing you'd want to do is about halfway down. So when the hands are coming down to about waist level here, feel like you're bringing that elbow right in to your side. So you watch right here instead of keeping it out there. That move you want to come down is that elbow is going right into the side, just like that. So a little bit ahead of the mid seam of your shirt, that elbow point is coming down right into the side. And I pause right there, and then I would just continue to go into the full finish of the swing. I get in tons of reps of that. You can do all kinds of practice swings at home, in the backyard. You don't have to go to the driving range and do these things, but get some reps at home if you're really seeing that elbow out away from your body, kind of flying in the downswing. That's where the issue is. So as long as that elbow is coming in and you're able to get this club nicely shallowed out and rotate and have a good impact position, then you're in good shape. But if you're someone who's coming over the top, coming down very, very steeply, you may want to look at that elbow motion in the downswing and see if that can help you to get that club working more nicely into impact. So hopefully that helps you understand exactly what's going on there, and maybe opened up some doors for you to work on some stuff. All right. So Paul M says, "Hi Q, I've just invested in the Swing Caddy SC200 and was quite shocked to see initially my swing speed was 76 miles per hour. I have worked on this, and the fastest I can get is 90 miles per hour. That's awesome, man. A 14 mile per hour increase. That's really good. When it feels like my arms are going to come out of the sockets, all right. That's what it may feel like at first, for sure. Do you just think this low speed is due to small stature? I am just 5 feet 6 inches tall." Well, I will say, being shorter and smaller, it's not great for distance. There's a reason why you don't see too many long drive competitors that are small people, right? You can create more leverage if you're larger, and typically if you're larger, you're also stronger. It's typically how it goes. Not always the case, but just in general, your muscles are bigger, so you're typically stronger, right? The muscles are bigger and they're longer, and you're going to end up being strong. Now, there have been some long drive competitors that are not huge guys. Jason Zuback being one of them. Jimmy Sidlowski, he didn't weigh a lot, or I think he was maybe 5'10", 5'8". I think Zuback is probably 5'8". I think he's about 5'8". So yeah, he's definitely not a real tall dude. I met him a couple years ago. So not a really, really tall guy, but definitely very, very built and strong. So yeah, it definitely doesn't help. If all things were equal, you'd be better off being 6 feet and proportionally larger, and you'd probably be able to hit the ball further. But hey, going from 76 to 90 miles per hour, that's a huge jump. I know you said your arms were going to feel like they're going to come out of your sockets, but that's just, that's your max speed. Your playing speed would hopefully be, somewhere in the 80s somewhere, and that's going to give you the added bump. And the more you work on it, the more that playing speed is going to go up. So keep on working through the course. 14 miles per hour, that's it. That's 30 plus yards, 40 yards right there. So if you can continue to work that up there, that's going to make a huge difference in your golf game. So yeah, absolutely. Being shorter, smaller, things aren't working for you, right? You're better off being larger. You're going to be able to get more club head speed. But that may not be the only reason. Sometimes people, they're so focused on just staying perfectly down the middle of the fairways that they just don't swing very hard. And that's going to be hard to get distance when you do that. A lot of people find as they go through our 20-minute distance fixed course, so they hit it just as straight as they did before when they were swinging really, really slow and trying to keep it really tight in the middle of the fairway. A lot of times they'll hit it just dead straight. So you may as well try to get comfortable swinging harder, and then that will become your new normal. And it won't feel like you're swinging that hard anymore. It'll feel much different. I did some I've done some speed training, and I used to be in 108, 110 range. That was kind of where I was swinging all the time, and just as a normal. And then I went through some speed training, swung as hard as I could. I got up to where my max speed I could do 124, the maximum all out, arms falling off kind of thing, kind of swing. And then eventually I got to where my playing speed was around that 117, 118 number. And I tell you what, if I swung 108, 110 right now, it would feel sloth-like. It would feel so slow. But before, that felt like a pretty aggressive swing for me. So as I went through the training and I did the neural adaptation and everything that went along with it, that raises up your feeling of what a fast swing is and what a slow swing is. So if you keep on working through that, it's going to help you out quite a bit. So continue to work through that. I think you'll be on the right track for sure. All right. So David B says, I'm an older golfer who struggles to, I'm not sure what that means. He's got some guy with a emoji on here, the tongue sticking out. I'm not sure what that means. On ball strikes. Oh, I see your subsequent message there. He meant pop up. Yeah, I'm not sure how that got in there either. So he says he pops up his ball strikes, especially with irons. Some instruction preaches the importance of high hands in the backswing for maximizing club head speed. Should high hands be an explicit swing thought, or should I just focus on shoulder turn? Thanks. Really, for distance, you want to focus on both. The most important thing is your shoulder turn. I'd much rather you have a flat swing and a big shoulder turn than a vertical swing and no shoulder turn. So the difference would be, here I am with a big shoulder turn and flat swing. So flat swing, big shoulder turn. So that I would much rather you be doing this than a vertical swing, no shoulder turn. That's what that looks like. So I would much rather you turn your shoulders a lot more. Now, if you can do both, where you have a vertical swing and a big shoulder turn, so that would be this right here, that would be the best for distance, because then you're creating the most space. And the more space you have, the more time, and the more you'll be able to accelerate the club into impact. And that's going to be able to allow you to get more club head speed and more distance. So ideally both, but if you're choosing one or the other, to work on, it's going to be shoulder turn is number one. And then after that, you want to get the high hands. Now, as far as you're getting the pop-ups, that's most likely due to hitting it really, really high on the face, which is most likely due to kind of chopping down into the golf ball. So I would look at your swing on camera, face on view. Take a look at your compression line. So your compression line is the line that goes up from your ankle, hip to your shoulder. And ideally, we would have that slightly angled away from the target as we're coming into impact. So your compression line's right at impact. I'm coming in, and my body's opening up here. My ankle, hip, and shoulder all in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target, just like that. That would be ideal. Now, if you get to where you are chopping down into the ball, a lot of times that will get to where it's leaning forward. Now I'm going like that. I'm really chopping down into the ball. I can get that high strike on the face. So I'd maybe be looking at that and take a look at your compression line and maybe work through some of the compression line videos to get to where you're nice and angled away from the target all in a straight line there. So I'd take a look at that. It's hard for me to tell without seeing your swing. Like I said, I do offer an unlimited swing review program where you can send me videos of your swing and I can tell you exactly what's going on and get rid of those pop-ups. It may be that you just need to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So if right now you are intentionally trying to hit it in the center of the face, but the reality is that the strikes are up here, you may need to try to actually hit it thin. I know that seems weird. Why would I intentionally try to hit a poor shot? But what you're doing is you're adjusting your feeling to get the desired result that you want. Same thing would happen if you were hitting it off the toe. You would try to intentionally hit it off the heel. So yeah, and that's going to move the strike most likely closer to the center of the face. So you can give that a try as well. Like I said, it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing, but I would give that a try and see if that helps. And if you'd like me to take a look at your swing, feel free to join my unlimited swing review program. I do have a couple spots available. If you click on the Learn More link above the video, you can go to that page. And also, there's from any page on the website, basically, if you click Get a Review at the top, that'll take you to the swing review page as well. So John C says, I watched Jon Rahm swing yesterday, and he doesn't go to parallel with his shaft. Is that crucial to go all the way back and parallel with the shaft? It's not crucial, but I will say I get people that say, hey, Jon Rahm doesn't have a full turn like you guys are talking about. Well, first of all, he does get to 90 degrees with his shoulder turn. He does do that. But I will tell you, if Jon Rahm took a bigger shoulder turn, let's say Jon Rahm wanted to compete in long drive. If he was doing that, he would not be swinging the way that he is now. He would be taking a much bigger shoulder turn, creating a much larger range of motion. Jon Rahm is able to get the distance that he needs with his, just 90-degree turn the way that it is right now. That's kind of his happy medium there, which allows him to strike the ball really well and get all the distance that he wants. So Jon Rahm isn't fishing for distance right now. He's trying to hit the ball solid and keep it in the fairway. So if you're someone who's looking for distance, you need to be doing things that give you the most distance. So if Jon Rahm was looking to get more distance, he would be increasing his shoulder turn. But obviously, he doesn't need to do that. Also, keep in mind, Jon Rahm, I think he's he's over 6 feet, I think. He's a big guy. He's over 6 foot. He's 200 some pounds. I mean, he's a big, strong guy, and he's able to get that kind of club head speed, 120 mile per hour club head speed with a shorter swing. But I guarantee you, if he swung longer, got a bigger shoulder turn, he would get more club head speed. So understand that. What may be right for a tour player as far as the way that how much they're doing certain things may not be the right thing for you. If you're looking for distance, you're going to need to do things that are different. Jon Rahm is 20-something years old. He's 6'2" or something like that, and 240 pounds. Like, he's a big dude, and hits it really, really solid. So you got to understand, if you're not in that category, you're going to have to do more things to get distance than what Jon Rahm is doing. So John C goes on to ask, how should I sole the club when I address the ball? What should I think about? I always tell myself, don't lift your head, and lift up and top the ball. So as far as soling the club, that's really personal preference. I personally kind of like to rest the club on the ground and then very, very slightly hover it just before I take it away. That's my personal preference. You've probably seen Clay in the videos with the driver. He likes to basically hover the driver right there. I don't feel comfortable with that. Not something I've ever done. I'm sure if I worked on it for a while, I could start doing that, but that's just not what I like to do, what I feel comfortable with. That's what Clay likes to do. So it's really personal preference. You do what works best for you. Either way, you've got to lift the club up very, very slightly to get it started. And that's basically what I do. And a lot of people do it involuntarily. They don't even realize that they're doing it. So if you want to hover the club behind the golf ball like Clay does, or like you see Matt Kuchar, you're going to see Phil Mickelson has actually started doing that in the last couple of years. Ricky Fowler, there's a lot of tour players out there that hover the driver behind the golf ball. It's really just personal preference. You see what works best for you. It's not what I would call a universal truth, something that you have to do. As far as what I'm thinking about, it really depends on the shot. I'm really focused on the back of the golf ball as far as my focus and what I'm looking at. I'm focused on the part of the golf ball that I'm trying to hit. So if I'm trying to hit basically a straight shot, I'm going to be focusing on the back of that golf ball. If I'm trying to hit maybe a draw and I need to get my club face close to my club path, I may be thinking about kind of the outside of the golf ball a little bit. And that's going to help me kind of feel like I'm wrapping around the ball. If I'm trying to hit a little bit of a fade, I might focus on the inside part of the golf ball. trying to get my face open to my club path as I'm coming through. So it really depends on what kind of shot I'm hitting. But for the most part, I like to be swing thought free. That'd be ideal for me. My swing thought is just basically hitting the ball solid. That I'm focusing on that part of the ball and making the swing that I need to, whether it be into out, out to in, or on plane. That's basically what I'm thinking about when I'm hitting the ball. Now, if I get certain things that are creeping into my swing that I know that I need to do, I might put a swing thought in there to help correct that. So, for instance, it sounds like for you, you kind of have a tendency to maybe lift up out of the swing and get too far away from the ball and maybe top it or something like that, like you mentioned. So having a swing thought that, okay, I need to make sure that I stay down, keep my head down and all the way into impact. If that's what helps you hit the ball, then absolutely. But I wouldn't try to fill your head with a million different things, right? Try to think about one swing thought, and if at all possible, I probably have basically zero swing thoughts. And, essentially, just a swing thought about hitting the ball solid would be ideal. That's what you want. They've actually asked tour players about this. They asked after their round. Maybe they went out and they shot the best round of their career, and they'll always tell you, I was just in the zone. Like I didn't have to think about anything. I was basically just swinging the club, and magic happened, basically. And it's because they don't have any swing thoughts at all. Everything's kind of working. They don't have to think about anything. They're just thinking about hitting the ball solid and hitting draws and fades and straight, high, low. They were hitting all their shots right on the money, and that's all that they're thinking about. They're not thinking about, I've got to make sure that I get my elbow in, or I got to make sure that I do something else. Because when you think about those things, sure, they can help you hit the golf ball, but it can also take away from your focus of hitting the ball solid. Because when you are hitting the golf ball, you've got to hit it in the center of the face. You've got to hit it with a square club face, on plane. You've got to hit the ball before the ground. And when you're thinking about an internal focus, which would be kind of what you're talking about, keeping your head down, thinking about your head keeping down. If you're thinking about the elbow coming in, if you're thinking about, I got to keep my lead arm straight, if you're thinking about a bunch of other things or what your wrists are doing, that's an internal focus. And it's taking away from the attention that you're giving to contact. So usually on your best days, you don't have to think about anything. You're just focusing on contact. Now, there may be days, like I said, where you have to, because if you don't think about that elbow or whatever it might be, it may really, really hurt your contact because you're not getting the club in the right position. So it's kind of you just kind of have to play it, by the way that you go through it. Hopefully you can go to the range beforehand and you can kind of work that out, whatever it is, before you get on the course. But, we don't always have that luxury, right? Sometimes we show up in the parking lot and we're teeing off 5 minutes later. That's kind of sometimes the way that it works. So sometimes you got to work that out on the course. And then once you get it in good shape, then you can just kind of focus on what's going on in contact. It's tough, man. Golf is a tough game. It's not easy. So yeah, ideally you would basically have no swing thoughts other than just hitting the ball solid. But if you're going to have any, it needs to be what helps you to hit the ball well. And it sounds like in your case, you're on the right track, because if you certainly lift up most of the time, then staying down is definitely going to help you hit the ball not more solid, not top it. All right. So Terry S. says, I'm getting improved iron shots and pressure on the ball, but my driver shots are still weak and inconsistent. I don't seem to be hitting up on the golf ball. So I'd be looking at a couple things to help you to hit up on the golf ball. So number one, I would look at your compression line. Talked about the compression line a little bit earlier, but basically, just to go over what that is again, as you're coming into contact, it's the line that goes up from your ankle, hip, and shoulder, and you like that to be slightly angled away from the target. Now, for the driver, it can be a little bit more angled away, and that's going to help you promote a more upward angle of attack on the golf ball. So that's one. One thing you can do. One thing you can also do is if you're teeing the ball too low, it's going to be hard to hit up on it. So I don't know if that's what you're doing, but ideally you would have about half of the golf ball above the crown of the club, or even a little bit more than that. That's going to help you to hit up on the golf ball. Ball position. I like to see ball position about straight down from the lead shoulder. A lot of times I see people, they'll put that, it's too far back in their stance and they're hitting down on the golf ball. So straight down from the lead shoulder, ball forward or ball back, somewhere in there is completely fine. But that's going to promote a more upward angle of attack on the golf ball. Lastly, a wider stance. So if you are wider, that's going to help you to stay behind help you. It's going to help you get that compression line more angled away from the target as you're coming in. So a little bit wider stance can help with that as well. There could be some other things that are going on there. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but I'd be happy to take a look. If you want to join my Unlimited Swing Review program, I can take a look and get you exactly on track. But without seeing your swing, I can just kind of give you some pointers to hopefully get you on the way. So hopefully that helps, Terry. So Thomas says, I am working my way through the stable fluid spine section and am surprised to see so much block training as I have always reacted badly to this approach. I'm breaking the drills down into mini blocks, but still experience the same result that the first few swings with the ball in the drill have good contact, ball flight, but then deteriorate. What interim approach should help stop my flip? So if you're looking to stop your flip, you're probably going to want to work through the move course. The biggest reason why people flip is usually because they're coming down steep in transition, and also because they are squaring up the club face by doing this action, flipping instead of that action, which is turning the handle down so that they can get a square club face at forward shaftling. So the move course is probably be the thing that I would have you work on. To get to the move course, click on the house icon, scroll down to where you see the Tusby Golf System courses, and click on the move. Now, as far as the way that the training works, I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of how what it takes to change your technique in your golf swing. So, especially if you've been playing golf for a long time, unfortunately, if you're older, it's definitely tougher. And if you've been playing golf for a long time, but basically, it takes time to ingrain certain movements. So if you've trained yourself your whole life to be in a certain way with your spine angle, let's say your entire life you have come down into the golf ball and your spine angle has been straight up and down. Well, it's going to be pretty darn tough for you to get to that angled away position. It's going to help. It's going to take a long time, a lot of reps for you to get to that point. So I equate it to learning how to type. I've used this analogy several times on here before on these office hours, but basically when you went to typing school, or if you did, or you took a typing class in high school or middle school or whatever it might be, you probably didn't show up the first day and go from not knowing how to type at all to typing 70 or 100 words a minute. The reason is because you have to train yourself how to do that. So in the beginning, you had no idea where any of the letters were, and you had to find each and every one, and you were pointing and pecking at every single one. And eventually you got to where you were able to kind of memorize where all the letters were, and maybe you were getting a little bit faster. And then eventually you learned, okay, I got to stop pointing and pecking. I got to put my fingers on this keyboard the correct way. And then you had to figure out which each individual finger did to get to, hit every letter and things like that. And then eventually you started figuring that out, and you got faster doing that. And then you got to where you could, you didn't have to look at the keyboard anymore. You could just look up at the screen and start typing. And then you got to where instead of thinking in individual letters, you were thinking in individual words, and you would just type the word. And then you got to where it was just sentences. You would type entire sentences, and you got to where you were eventually typing, 70, 100 words a minute or wherever it might be that you got up to. That didn't take one day. That didn't even take a week. That probably took months to get to that point. And that's with working on it every single day in class. So it takes time to build these neural pathways to make it ingrained. Now, you may go through and you may hit a bunch of words or hit a bunch of letters, and it would be great. But the next time that you go and you get kind of an awkward word or something like that, you go a lot slower. Well, you haven't ingrained these movements yet and made them second nature. And that's what we're trying to do in the through the course. That's why we're telling you to do 1,000 reps. It's not because we just want you to stick around and stay with us because you have to do all these reps. It's because that's how many it takes to really ingrain a movement. Now, it's not across the board. Some people it's going to take 100 reps. Some people it's going to take 10,000 reps. It just depends on how bad, or not how bad, but how far off and how ingrained the other movement was. You can't ever get rid of a habit. You can never get rid of a habit. But what you can do is create new habits that overcome the old ones. And that's what you're doing in this course, or in those Tatsuya Golf System courses, is you have to create this new habit to overcome the old one, which was that, whatever it might be. So if you're wanting to work on forward shaft lay and get rid of your flip, if you're wanting to work on something specific, I'd recommend working with a Tatsuya Golf instructor to help you pinpoint exactly what you need to do and make that happen. If you're looking to accelerate the progress as you go through that, that's really the best way to do it. But if you're just looking for some technique help and working through the system's absolutely going to work for you, but it's going to take some time to get all these reps in and going through. And even if you work with an instructor, it's going to take time to get to ingrain these movements. So it really just depends on how much you want to work, and if you have the right guidance and things like that, it can help accelerate your progress. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I think people have this understanding that I can just tell you what to do, and then you just go do it, and you're good. Well, if it was like that, and I wish it was like that, then everyone would be really good at golf, right? No, it takes a lot of time to ingrain these movements and to make them second nature, so that you basically want to do them enough to where you don't even think about it. So like when you type a word or a sentence, there's probably if you were to think back after you typed a whole entire sentence, you wouldn't remember how you typed the T, or if the first word was you wouldn't have any recollection of typing that word. It's because it was completely second nature. You just did it without any thought at all. And that's where you want to get to when you're changing your swing in golf. And that's why it takes so many repetitions. Like I said, you may get to where you're able to do it, but to make it completely second nature and to be able to do it without thought, that's why you're seeing the deterioration after you do it a couple of times, is because you're not staying with it. It's not second nature yet. It's not ingrained into your swing. So you have to get to the point where it's ingrained. So hopefully that helps, Thomas. But yeah, if you're wanting to work with an instructor, I'd recommend clicking that Learn More button. If you're wanting to pinpoint flipping, maybe the spine angle isn't going to be the thing that's going to help your flipping. It's most likely going to be the move or something like that. I'd maybe check out the move course and see if that correlates to what's going on in your swing. So Corey S. says, assuming the sequencing is correct and the swing is started driven by the lower body, should I feel like you are adding power and speed with your arms at all, or should they feel like they are along for the ride and basically paralyzed? So one thing to understand here is that everyone's feels are completely different. You can kind of think about it in sense of pain tolerance, right? So some people with needles, right? So some people, they'll go get a tattoo and then they'll say, it didn't even hurt. I didn't feel a thing. It was just like little pinches and things like that. And some people, the moment that little needle hits their skin, they are freaking out. It hurts so much. So everyone's pain tolerance is different, just like everyone's feel is a little bit different. I remembered, it's kind of a funny story about me. I got, when I was a child, I think I for some reason, I remember being deathly afraid of getting shots. I remember them hurting so much. And then a few years ago, I cut my finger really bad, doing some duct work, and I just cut my finger wide open, and I hadn't had a tetanus shot and I don't know how long. And I was just looking for every single reason not to go get a tetanus shot because I just didn't want it. I just didn't want the pain of this tetanus shot getting me in the arm. So finally, I talked to a few friends. One that was a nurse, and she said, "Hey, you got to go get this tetanus shot. You got to do it within so many hours or whatever. Otherwise, you're going to be susceptible to tetanus. You need to go get that taken care of." So finally, I bit the bullet and I went and got it taken care of. And I went to, I guess, Walgreens will do it. And I went over there and had the pharmacist do it. And I was a little worried about that because like it's not like a medicine doctor. He's a pharmacist. So I thought, well, how many times have they really done this? So I was getting paranoid about that. And then he was talking to me or whatever, and I didn't even feel it. I literally did not even feel the tetanus shot. He did it in my arm, and he said, "All right, you're all done." And I said, I didn't even feel anything. So I apparently shots aren't that big a deal to me anymore. So basically what it comes down to, everyone's feels a little bit different. You know, some people are going to feel that tetanus shot and it's going to be the worst pain that they've ever had. Whereas for me, I didn't even feel it. So everyone's feel is a little bit different when it comes to what's going on. What you feel in your swing is going to be different from what a tour player feels in their swing. So someone who has proper sequencing, I will tell you right now, they're not feeling like they're holding back with their arms. Typically, they're feeling like they're coming down with their arms as hard as they can. Because if you have proper sequencing, what you're doing is you're building the momentum from the bottom up. So you're feeling the foot coming down the ground, and that's pushing into my leg, and then my leg is pushing into my hips, and that's getting my hips to start moving, and then that's going up to my rib cage here and my torso, and that's getting my torso moving, and then that's going to my shoulders, and that's getting my shoulders moving. That's going to my arms, that's getting my arms moving, and then that's going to my hands, that's getting my hands moving, and then my hands are getting this club moving. So if that sequence, if it's happening in that sequence, you should feel like you are going as hard as you possibly can, obviously within reason, with control, to make that happen. You don't, now it may feel differently for you, but the reality of what's going on is you should be able to feel or be able to get doing it as hard as you can. If you ask tour players, they don't feel like they're holding back with their arms. They feel like they're swinging with their arms a lot. Now, some of it may be that you may need to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. Now, that's a different story. Now, if you're coming through and you may think that you're sequencing properly, but the reality is that you're not, and you are flipping the club. If you're flipping the club, you're most likely not sequencing properly. A lot of flipping the club comes from not using the lower body at all, and maybe you start out with the right sequence, but then through it, you actually have your arms and everything overtake. So if you're sequencing properly, you should feel like your arms are going as hard as you can. And you should not feel like your arms are ever really paralyzed. In general, that doesn't really work very well. But for some people, if they're really just using their arms too much and they literally just use all arms in their golf swing, it may be beneficial for them to kind of feel like they don't use their arms at all and just use their body to get into the golf ball. But the reality is that they're using their arms a lot. They're just using it less than what they were before. So it's a tough question to ask when someone asks, am I feeling this? Am I actively doing this? Am I consciously doing this? And the reason is because everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's feel is different, just like everyone's pain tolerance is different. It's all, everything's a lot different there. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. But I will say, since you prefaced it with assuming sequencing is correct, are you feeling like you're using your arms? Since you phrase it that way, you are absolutely using your arms to add power, because if you're doing that, then you won't be flipping the club, and you should be going hard at the golf ball. And that's what basically all tour players are feeling too. So Mike M says, I live in Minnesota and our season is pretty much over. What can I do to continuing improvement during the winter when I can't swing a club? So one thing you can do is you can putt in the house. You can do some putting. You can do some full swing stuff. You can work on the Top Speed Golf System. Most of the Top Speed Golf System courses don't really require you to hit a golf ball. We're just working on the movements. So as long as you have some space to do a practice swing, you can work your way through the Top Speed Golf System as well. So yeah, that would be all completely fine if you did that. If you had a net, that'd be even better if you could hit balls into a net or anything like that. That'd be good too. So Paul M says, thanks, Q. Appreciate your comments. No problem. Glad I could help. And David H says, my downswing is too steep. Working on shallowing out, doing mental checklist everything else required with the downswing. A lot to think about. I realize it's a process, and that's why there is so much suggested repetition in grain sequencing, sequencing and sets. Is what's your trigger to starting the downswing? Really, for me, it's just getting to my lead side. So getting that momentum moving to your lead side. Now, technically, if you want to think about a technical term for what starts the downswing, that's really when the club switches directions. So the club's going up to the top, and when it switches directions, that's the start of the downswing. But a lot of people, when they say, "How do I start the downswing?" The technical term is that you switch directions with the club. But that's really not what people are usually asking. They're talking about how do I get basically to my lead side, or how do I get the club to switch directions in the proper way. And the key there, what most people don't do, is that they don't get their weight shifted to their lead side until it's way too late. So what I'd recommend doing to help you start that downswing is what's called the step drill. The feeling that I'm trying to have before I switch directions with the club is that I've got some momentum moving forward. And that's what most people don't do. Now, technically, I don't have to think about that in my swing because it's something that's second nature. But if it's something that you're struggling with, then you may need to think about it. So the step drill is going to be a really good one. What you're doing in this drill is you're starting with your feet together, and then you're starting this club going back. And as soon as that club starts going back, you are stepping forward. So that's going to help you get your momentum moving forward in the backswing. It's going to be probably a little different sensation for you. It's going to be a little bit of a different sensation for you, but it can really, really help you with that proper sequencing and things like that. So the way to find that drill, that step drill, is click on the search engine at the top of the screen there, top right of the screen. There's a little search window. Search the word downswing. When you do that, you're going to find some search results that say one of the videos is called "How to Start the Downswing." It's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail of the video. That's the one you not want. Clay goes over the step drill in that video. That's the one I would recommend for getting the proper feeling. That's what I see most of the time with people who are struggling with starting the downswing properly. Because most people, they bring the club up, and the first thing that comes down is the arms. There's no weight shift. There's no momentum shift or anything. We got to get our body going, and then that's how we get to where we're starting from the ground up. We're getting that pressure in the ground with our lead leg. That's going to help us to rotate the body open. The torso opens, the shoulders open, then the arms go, the hands go, then the club goes. That's the sequence that you want there. All right, so Murray W says, I seem to have to try and place the forward shaft lean in my swing, and it slows down swing speed, and I don't finish well. How do I do forward shaft lean more naturally? So what I'd recommend doing is working on the straight line release course along with the move course, because it sounds like you're kind of dragging the club through, and when you do that, that's really going to slow you down. What I mean by that is that you're coming down, you're trying to hold this angle as you're coming through so that you get forward shaft lean. What you want to do is you want to generate your lag, and then you want to release that as hard as you can out in front. That's how you still get the speed and stuff. So it sounds like that's what's going on with you, is you're kind of just dragging that club through. So straight line release course along with the move course. If you're coming down steep in the swing, like this. So what that means is in the downswing, this club is coming down in a steep position. If you're coming down steep, you're typically going to release that club early, because what happens is to get this club to come back down on plane, what you'll do is you'll kind of stand up. When you stand up, you move further away from the golf ball, and you have to flip to get to the golf ball. So I'd be working on the move and the straight line release course to help you with your forward shaft lean. Again, it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing exactly, but I imagine that's what's going to help you. But if you want me to take a look at your swing and see exactly what you need to do to help you get some forward shaft lean, I'll be happy to do that. Just want to join my Unlimited Swing Review program, click the Learn More button at the top there. I'll be happy to take a look at your swing for you and get you on the right track. So David H says, are toe shots a result of poor sequencing? It can be, because a lot of times poor sequencing can cause you to come over the top. So that can be a problem. And then when you come over the top, you're usually a little bit more susceptible to toe strikes. And the reason is that when you are coming over the top, your club path usually ends up going from out to in. So if I grab a golf ball here, if your club path is going from out to in, so if we have our golf ball here, this would be basically an on-plane swing, right? So we're coming in straight into the golf ball. This would be an out to in kind of swing. So if you're cutting across the golf ball, you're going to be susceptible to those toe strikes because your club is moving. The ball is moving toward the toe, or the club is moving. The toe is moving toward the golf ball as you're coming in. So you're going to be more susceptible to toe strikes when you do that. Now you can also have toe strikes when you're swinging from way into out or from on plane. And if you're having toe strikes and you're not swinging over the top, if you are swinging over the top, I'd recommend working through our Never Slice Again course. That whole course is going to help you to start swinging more from the inside. It's going to make it much easier for you to get that center face contact. So if you look at your swing, the easy way to do it is you can look at your divots too. If you're looking at your divots, if you're taking divots anyway, if you're looking at your divots and they're pointing well left of the target, if you're right-handed, that's an indication that you are coming over the top, and you're going to want to work through our Never Slice Again course. But you should get in the habit of filming your swing. So I'd recommend getting the camera out and looking at your swing from down the line and watch this club. If this club comes down, it's coming down like outside of the hands like this. So you're coming down and this club head is working outside of the hands. That's an indication that you're coming over the top. If it's working kind of in line with the hands, then that's an indication that you're coming down pretty well on plane. If it's well inside the hands, then it might be coming in too much inside. I would guess if you're hitting it on the toe, you're probably coming over the top a little bit, probably coming down steep, kind of an over the top kind of fashion here. So I'd be working through our Never Slice Again course. To get to that course, click the house icon, top of the page there. That's going to bring you to the home page. If you scroll down through the courses, you'll see the Never Slice Again course. Start working through the drills. Now, if you're not coming over the top and you're seeing that you're coming down on plane very, very nicely, you don't struggle with any slices or pulls or anything like that. If that is the case, then you probably just need to adjust your feeling. There could be some other things that are going on. You may be standing too far away from the golf ball. There just might be some other things that are going on, but most likely you probably just need to change your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So what that would mean is if you are struggling with toe strikes, so your intention is to hit it in the center of the face, but the actuality of what's happening is that you're ending up hitting it out here. So what you should do is adjust your feeling to hit it here, to hit it on the heel. And like I said, I know that seems like it would be counterintuitive. Like, why would I try to hit a bad shot to hit a good one? Well, what you're doing is you're adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. And in order to do that, you're going to need to feel like you hit it on the heel. Now, what will most likely happen is you'll end up with a strike more in the center of the face. One thing that you can do is you can take like a little marker and put a heavy dot on the golf ball and then set up that dot to where it will contact the face when you strike it. And then you'll be able to see exactly where you strike it on the face. That's my preferred method for seeing strikes on irons. You could also use foot powder spray, but I'm not a big fan of that with irons because a lot of times when you come in, you'll hit the ball and it'll leave the mark on the face with the foot powder spray, but then you take the divot and it basically washes off the face, especially if you have a lot of moisture in the grass. So sometimes it's not that helpful. Foot powder spray, I like to use those with drivers because a lot of drivers these days have really dark metal, and it's hard to see the little dot on there. So I like to use the foot powder spray on there because it's easier to see. And obviously you're not taking a divot, hopefully, with your driver. So it's easier to see. So foot powder spray with the driver, the heavy dot on the golf ball, and then striking that on the face. It'll show up. You'll see a little dot on the face exactly where you strike it. So I would be looking at that and then try to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So try to hit it off the heel and that will most likely move it to the center of the face, and you'll be able to see that with the mark. Now, if you still hit it off the toe, then you got to get out of your comfort zone, because a lot of people, they just have trouble getting out of their comfort zone, and they just can't do it for the life of them. But you gotta get out of your comfort zone, get out of your bubble. You may need to feel like you're coming in and you're hitting it so far off the heel that you're missing the golf ball. That's how much you may need to exaggerate it. So exaggerate it as much as you need to get this ball in the center of the face. And if you're afraid that, hey, I'm going to hit this off the hosel of my club and I'm going to break my club, use a foam ball or a wiffle ball or something. Get comfortable with that, and then you can go to the golf ball. That's a completely understandable fear there. I have no issue with that. But let's say that you hit it and you actually hit it off the heel. Well, that just means that you overdid it. Just ease off of that feeling to get that strike more in the center of the face. And then keep doing, once you get it in the center of the face, keep going at it with that feeling and try to get a bunch in a row in the center of the face until basically you will have to keep doing that until you actually are doing what you're intending to be doing. So let's say you adjust your feeling to hit it off the heel, and now you're hitting it in the center of the face, center of the face, center of the face. Every single time when you're thinking you're hitting it on the heel, you have to keep doing that. But eventually what will probably happen is you'll start hitting it off the heel. You'll probably start hitting it off the heel slowly and slowly and slowly. And by that time, if you're trying to hit it off the heel and you are hitting off the heel, then you're calibrated, right? So now you can go back to trying to hit it in the center of the face. So a lot of what golf is just adjusting your feeling to get the desired result that you want. And that's, that will help you out quite a bit. So Mark B says, Q, you mentioned divots. What should a proper divot look like? That's a good question. Just in general terms, a divot should be about the size of a dollar bill. And it should be just like taking a 1/4 inch off the turf. It's like the club came in and just shaved that top layer of turf off. That would be what you consider a perfect divot. But there are tons of variations, right? So if you're hitting it in very wet and very tight turf and it's very wet, you're going to take a much bigger divot. If you're playing in very, very dry conditions and very thick conditions, it may be just kind of a brushing of the grass. So keep in mind, if very dry, firm conditions, it's not going to be as much of a difference. Very wet, plush kind of conditions, there's going to be more of a divot there. What you'll often see, what you see with most amateurs, is you'll see that the divot is not perfectly square. When I say dollar bill, you want that divot to be nice and square. And if it's not, that means that you're not coming in to contact very flush with the club. And a lot of times what you see, people are coming in, it's toe down, because most people struggle with the flipping. They come down and they flip. And in order to flip, this handle has to be raised. And when that handle gets raised, so here I am right here. When the handle gets raised, I have a toe down divot. So you'll come in and you'll see that outer part of the divot. It'll almost look like trapezoid a little bit. So basically, that's what the divot should look like. But again, your conditions can dictate a little bit of what your divot will end up looking like. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at them. So Mark B said, should it go directly down the target line? That's a great question. And it really depends on the kind of shot that you're trying to hit. So if you are trying to hit a draw, then your divot should be kind of pointing a little bit right of the target, because in order to hit a draw, you should be swinging in to out. So your divot will be going a little bit right of the target. Now, if you're hitting a straight shot, your divot will be going pretty much toward the target. It can be going very, very slightly left, because understand that your club is coming down, it's hitting the golf ball, and then it's going down into the turf. So as the club is kind of working around your body, it's going, just to think about it in this way, this is the club kind of working around your body here. This is going into out, into out, into out, very, very straight path, and then out to in, out to in, out to in. So as the club is working around your body, if you're hitting a dead straight shot, it should be pretty much right at the target. But the club, when it ends up hitting the ground after the golf ball, it can be moving to the left just a little bit. So you can hit a straight shot with a little bit of a divot that's pointing slightly left of the target. And then if you're trying to hit a fade, typically it's going to be pointing a little bit left of the target, assuming you're right-handed. So that's basically it. In a nutshell, it should be pointing pretty much right at the target if you're trying to hit straight shots. If your divot is really left of the target, pointing really left of the target, you're most likely coming over the top. And if your divot is kind of thin in the beginning and then it gets wider, or you just see it's very, very thin to begin with and the club doesn't go down anymore, you're most likely coming down toe down, and that is an indication that you are flipping the club. So you can see all these things. You just got to film your swing. Get in the habit. People ask me all the time, what's the best training aid out there that you can get? One of the best training aids is something that you probably already have in your pocket right now, and that is your phone, the camera on your phone. So use your smartphone, download an app like V1 Golf. There's a bunch of other ones out there, but V1 Golf is the one that we use. If you plan on signing up for Swing Reviews, I'd recommend using V1 Golf because that's what we use for Swing Reviews. May as well get acquainted with it. I know there's a bunch of other ones out there. I just haven't used any of them. But anyway, view your swing on camera. That's one of the best training aids out there, is actually looking at your swing on camera. Now, you can look at your ball flight and look at your divots and things like that and learn a lot of things from your swing, absolutely. But in order to see actually the technique and things that are going on that could be causing some issues, you want to look at your swing on camera. You ever hear the saying, feel isn't always real? It rarely is. A lot of times people look at their swing on camera for the first time, they're shocked by what they see because it doesn't feel like they're doing what they're seeing on camera. So I'd recommend using an app, checking your swing on camera, view from face on, from down the line. We have a video on the website that shows you how to film your swing so that you can see these things that we talk about in the Top Speed Golf system. If you want to find that video, if you go to the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the search box. If you search the word video, you'll find the video for how to film your swing. And Clay just shows you how to set up the camera to get the proper angles and everything. So check that out. They also have, I know on V1 Golf, they have pro comparisons. So you kind of see what you're doing versus what a tour player is doing, and see what they're doing with the Top Speed Golf system, see how they're kind of nailing all the pieces. You'll be able to see more of what that looks like. And then versus yourself, you can see kind of where you're not quite doing it right or you are doing it right, and so on and so forth. So got a couple more minutes here. If you have one more quick question, I'll be happy to answer that for you. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and we'll have a great weekend. One thing I wanted to mention is next week, Thursday, if you normally attend the Thursday office hours, that one's going to be at 9 a.m. instead of 3 p.m. And then the Friday office hours, we're still trying to figure out. I'm actually going to be gone on Friday, but trying to see if we can get one of the other instructors, see if Robin can cover that. I'm not sure if he'll be able to or not. He may be out on the lesson tee and may not be able to cover it. So it'll either be no office hours on next Friday or maybe Robin, and also maybe Robin at a different time. It just depends on what's going on there. So sorry about that. If we don't have the office hours on that day, but I'm going to be on a flight on my way out for a little weekend trip. So I will be back the following Monday at 3 p.m. So if we don't have any more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there for today. Thanks you, everybody, for joining me today. Hopefully you have a great weekend. If you're up in the north, enjoy the nice weather while you can. I'm guessing it's pretty nice up there right now. Get some golfing in before it gets too cold. So get out there and play. So hopefully everybody has a great weekend, and I will talk to you all next time. Thanks for joining me.